Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. Tonight's show is going to be focusing on a new area for us, new in the recent scheme of things. Having been to Lake Como and Cinque Terre, we are now going back to Tuscany. So that's what tonight's show is going to introduce, and we're indeed going to begin with one of my favorite places in Tuscany, which is the town of Lucca. So let's go to the album. And there it is, show number 106, and the town of Lucca. And to introduce the town, there is a really spectacular photograph of what Lucca looks like from the air. This was a photograph that I took off the internet. We did not have this kind of vantage point, but a small plane taking this photograph gives you an idea as to what the town looks like, and we'll talk about that a little more in a few minutes. But this is where we were, and in the last several shows, we were in Cinque Terre, talking about all the various towns along there, and also going down to the town of Porto Venere over there at the bottom. And we were in Monterosso al Mare, which you could see there, right along where it says Cinque Terre. And we were going to my friend Lydia's house in Chiesina Uzzanese. What we did was we're here in Monterosso and drove up here to the autostrada. And let me show you, this. This is the map of the route we took to get from Monterosso al Mare to the town of Lucca. So you can see that we first have to get to the autostrada, and then we head down kind of in a southeasterly direction towards towards the town of Lucca. And what we did, we knew we were going to be going to Lydia's house and passing a lot of very, very interesting places along the way, one of which was Lucca. And I asked Laura, where would you like to stop? Because we didn't want to get to Lydia's too early, because Lydia was not going to be getting home from work. It was a Friday evening, I believe. She was not going to be getting home from work until much later in the day. So it was our intention to try to do other things during the day and wind up at Lydia's house. So I asked Laura where she wanted to go. I gave several choices along the way, and she came to the conclusion that she wanted to go to the town of Lucca. The last time we were in Lucca, which was 2009, she wasn't feeling well. I wasn't feeling well. So it was not a really great experience. So we thought we'd go back, now that we were feeling, much better. So this is a closer up view of where Lucca is. And you could see it right over there where the little red dot is. This is Lucca right here. And here's Florence over here. And we were going to Lydia's house right over here. It's not indicated on the map, but Chiesina Uzzanese is really just north of the much, much more famous town of Montecatini Terme. So we were going to, stop in Lucca and then take the very short ride to Lydia's house and then stay there and wind up, of course, in Florence. So, and this is a view of what Lucca looks like and the trip we took to get from Monterosso to Lucca in relation to Italy in general. You could see that once again we were driving pretty much along the Ligurian coast, although we did not really, once we left Cinque Terre, we did not see any water at all. So we just, drove directly to Lucca. And there's the town. And let me tell you a little bit about the town of Lucca. The town goes back, as many places in Italy do, to the Etruscan times, and then it became Roman. In fact, the rectangular grid pattern of the streets in Lucca not resemble, but were created by the Romans. Um, the big event that took place there during the first century BC was the first triumvirate, which included Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, and that took place in Lucca in the year 56 BC. Over the centuries, in the 8th to 10th century, it was a Jewish center. From 10th to the 11th century, it began the silk trade. In the 19th century, it was conquered, as was most of Italy, by Napoleon. And though that's the basic history, and it's a very complicated history, which I didn't want to get into, except that somewhere along the line, Lucca was taken over by the Medici family. So that's Lucca right there. And a couple of very interesting things just by looking at this, this picture right here. You could see that, there are mountains in the distance, but it's not really a hilly location. It's really a rather flat location. And you could see that there's an extremely well-preserved wall around it, and that wall is used now in modern times as a walkway for people who want to just kind of go out for the day, and it's also a riding area for bicycles, as you'll see a little later. And it's a very self-contained town that, to me, always reminded me of my other favorite town in central Italy, of Orvieto. So I did a little comparison and came to the conclusion. Do I have the picture of? No, I have that a little later on. But so Lucca is 71 square miles as opposed to Orvieto, which is 108 square miles. So Orvieto is about 1.5 times the size of Lucca. But the population of Lucca is 87,000 as opposed to Orvieto, which is 21,000. So Lucca has a population which is actually 4 times the size. And, honestly, it doesn't seem to me that Lucca is that much larger than Orvieto, but I'll show you another picture of it a little later. So here we are, and we get on the autostrada in the vicinity of Cinque Terre, and we head pretty much southeast. And one of the things we passed along the way, it was a long ride on the autostrada. So one of the things we did was stop at what's called the Auto Grill. It's our service area along, let's say, the New York State Thruway or the New Jersey Turnpike, except that the Auto Grill and the service areas in Italy are really spectacular in comparison to, I hate to say it, some of the food you get at the service areas in the United States. The food, although it is, self-service and fast service, is really very, very good food. And they have tables to sit, and they have a lot of other things you could buy, like pasta and other types of things, and it's a really, really pleasant experience stopping at one of these rest areas. When we got to Lucca, we decided, since we weren't that familiar with Lucca, the previous 2 times I was in Lucca in 2001 when I was there alone during one of my solo trips, and I took the train. And Laura and I were in Lucca in 2009, as I mentioned, and in that trip we actually drove right up to the door of the hotel. But this time we were just, visiting for the day, and we were going to park in one of the parking areas there. So we, needed to kind of really take note of where we were exactly, because, 5 hours later, when we came back to the car, we wanted to make sure we knew exactly where it was. So we took a picture of the area where the car was located. So here is, the overhead picture of Lucca, and we came in right over here. So we were parked kind of in this area over here on the left side. We came through this gate and we then walked as straight as possible through here. You could see the rectangular grid pattern that the Romans left the town. But we walked right along this street pretty much, deviating left and right to see various other things. Most of our day was spent in this small area, not such a small area, but this area right over here. We didn't go up here to this northern area of the town, or over here, the eastern area, but we spend most of our time kind of right over here, and then we walk back, so we didn't have that much difficulty finding our way around the town of Lucca, which, pretty unfamiliar to us. This is the town of Orvieto. I couldn't get an overhead view of it, but I got this. And, obviously, Lucca is, as I indicated, smaller than Orvieto, but has, 4 times as large a population. I guess the population density is much larger. And I think you could see that when you walk around the town. There's a lot of people, in the streets. So here we are. We parked the car just off to the left, and we walk along this main street. And along the way, we passed, the walls of Lucca, which go back to medieval times. And you could see one of the extremely well-preserved portions of the wall over there in the picture, right in the center. And there is, that means, Città di Lucca means, the city of Lucca. And we went through that gate there, right there, into the town. And you see there's a sign which indicates no entry. So I was very glad that I left my car outside the walls. And this is a very good shot of what the walls of Lucca look like as you're about to enter. And you can see some people kind of picnicking over there in the center. And here we are through the gate going into the town. And as you could see, there are a lot of cyclers. It's a very, very, very big bicycle town, as you'll see much more of in the next few minutes. And there's, one of them up against one of the doors that Laura always enjoys photographing. And this is the street that we walked along to get to where we were going. Now, we did have a goal in mind. The goal in mind was for us to head towards 2 locations. One was the Piazza Napoleone, which is a very, very large piazza with places to eat. And also, we were going to go to the hotel we stayed at in 2009, where there was a really beautiful church right in the piazza. So that was our goal, and we walked straight along these streets. This is actually a view off to the side. You can see what the town looks like. It's a typical, but very pretty Italian town. A lot of people walking and cycling, as you could see. There's a cafe over there on the left. Very, very common in Italy, of course, to have these outdoor cafes. The weather was perfect. And, you could see groups of people with cyclers and shops over there on the right side. Lucca is a very interesting combination of medieval and also modern. And they had a lot of concerts and a lot of movies. This is a movie theater that was showing A Hard Day's Night, which of course was, the movie with the Beatles. And there are some other advertisements. Actually, I think they're advertising the newspapers, because one of them I'm very familiar with, La Nazione. And, we passed some very, very beautiful places. Gated palazzi, and stands over there on the left side selling various products along the way. And we entered an area where the Palazzo Ducale is located. This is the administrative center of Lucca, and it has been that way for the past 8 centuries. So this is the municipal area of Lucca with the Italian flag up there on the top. And that amministrazione provinciale di Lucca is the means the provincial administration of the town of the city of Lucca. There's an advertisement for an exhibition which was taking place in the near future. A very pretty combination of modern administrative buildings and the beautiful scenery of trees. Right up there, why we photographed this is because one of the sculptures in the exhibition is actually right up here on top. These bars, incidentally, are the bars that were put in during medieval times to kind of hold the building in place. This, as you could see, I don't know if you could really tell by just looking, this is a Gothic building, and a lot of Gothic buildings have those rods right across here. You can see it at various points, and that's pretty much to hold everything up. And there's an exhibition that was taking place. And of course, as we went further into the town, you could see more and more bicycles over there on the right side. Obviously a bicycle park of some sort. And now we enter the Piazza Napoleone. And you could see that it's a piazza that has a lot of outdoor cafes, and that's why we were very interested in coming to this particular location. So we entered right here, and we saw all of the cafes lined up along the side there, and we chose this very first one here for no special reason. This was the place that we decided to eat. It looked like it had very nice outdoor tables. It was a pizzeria, and it also had pasta. You could see it right there in the background, and it just appealed to us. It seemed very popular, and we decided that we were going to have lunch right here. There's a picture of the table we had with me sitting at the table with that giant bottle of water there right in the middle. And this is where we had lunch, and then spent some time walking around the piazza itself. I believe this is the largest piazza in the town of Lucca. And you could see right over there is a carousel. There's a better view of it. And, families bring their children here and spend the day. And it's very, very pleasant with the carousel and the outdoor cafes and the horse-drawn carriages, as you could see right there in the center, which attracted a group of children that we found, very, 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 very nice. There they are, kind of, and the rider of the driver of that coach is talking to one of the children. Very, very pleasant place, and you can see the children playing and going on the carousel. So a really, really nice place to spend an hour or so having a very, very relaxing lunch. There's another cafe. Yet another view of the piazza. And then we began to move towards our destination. Our next destination was going to be the Piazza San Michele, which has our favorite church in the town, and also the hotel that we stayed in several years ago. We took a picture of this because it was a box office that was publicizing some concerts that were going to take place in the near future. And there's one right over there. The group Eagles, the Eagles, were going to be there. So, that's an American group that obviously would be playing in Lucca, and that's where you would buy the tickets. This was actually the advertisement for all the various concerts which were going to take place, and the two of which that, three of which jumped out at us were right at the top, the Eagles, and that's, I think, July 2nd, and right next to it is one of my favorite guitarist, Jeff Beck, on the 7th of July. And then all the way down, going that same column, Stevie Wonder was going to be there on the 20th. And then a bunch of other people. We never heard of them. But, this is a very young town, which, they have a lot of things going on of interest for people. Okay, this is an outdoor restaurant in another area of town. And you could see that, they all look very, very inviting. So, you could choose just any one. You're going to get good food. And this church is actually not the church that I mentioned, but this is the church of San Giovanni. And it was originally built, believe it or not, in the 400s. So the foundations of this church, the Church of San Giovanni, go back to the 400s. And it was then redone in the 12th century and redone again in the 16th century. The facade that you're looking at, that's the front of it, is actually from the 16th century. And there's a close-up view of the entrance. You could see how beautiful the entrance is. This was actually right next door to the church. And then we came to the Cathedral of Lucca. The cathedral is San Martino, and the church was originally consecrated in the year 600. These churches go back a really long time, and was changed during the 11th century, and during the 12th century it was actually officially designated as the Duomo, which is, the cathedral of Lucca. And that is a very, very beautiful church. I have different angles. There's a real good close-up of it. And when I saw this church and I saw the columns on that first, second, and third levels, I realized that, those columns look familiar to me. And I went back through my own archives, and we got a real close-up view. You could see that each of the columns is of a different style. So that's very, very interesting. And, when I got back to the United States, I said, well, this is what it reminded me of, and this is the cathedral in Pisa that, we focused on in greater detail when we did the Pisa show last year, or maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember. But you could see it has the same basic theme, the beautiful columns in layers, going up. And actually also there's the Leaning Tower, the campanile of the cathedral over there on the right, which also has the same architectural theme. And now we're back to the cathedral in Lucca. You could see how really intricate and beautiful the arches are on that cathedral. And this is the piazza that the cathedral is located. That's actually the very side of the cathedral going back, and the piazza in which it's located. And you could see that there's a cafe over there on the left side, capitalizing on the fact that it's right in one of the most famous piazzi in all of Lucca. And now we're walking down the street headed for our destination. You could see, souvenir stands over there on the right side. and very, very charming streets along the way. With, you know, an unbelievably large number of bicycles over there. And there's once again an advertisement for some of the concerts that are going to be taking place during that year. Luglio means July, and you know, the 2nd of July 2014, with the other concerts also advertised right over there. And this was our destination. This is the church of San Michele, which is located right on the site of an ancient Roman forum. And the church of San Michele was built in the year 795, was rebuilt in the 11th century. The facade is from the 13th century, and there it is. And you could see it has the same exact theme as of the columns on that first, second, third, and even fourth level that the cathedral had, and also that the cathedral in Pisa and the campanile in Pisa, and also indeed the baptistry of Pisa as well. Now Pisa is maybe a 40-minute car ride from Lucca. So, you know, it's my, you know, I didn't do too much research on this, but I said I think I know enough to be able to say intelligently that in this area of Tuscany, which is the northwest area of Tuscany, this was the general theme of architecture for the churches, with those, you know, with those columns in multi-tiers. And this was a really, really nice spot to just kind of hang out for a little while, and we decided to do that. We decided that we were going to spend some time here. Here's a really close-up view, and you could see that each column, again, has that same theme as the cathedral of different, you know, a different style of the column. Really, really beautiful church. And this is the piazza, again lined with bicycles and cafes. And that's a picture that Laura took of me in the year 2009. Now, in 2009, it was our goal to spend one night in Lucca at a really, really nice hotel, which I'll show you in just a moment. And this was in the middle of January. You could see that I'm dressed, you know, very warmly there. And, you know, we had gone out, and you could see the streets are wet, so it was raining there. So this was not a very pleasant experience being in Lucca this particular day. We did get around to most of the town, and we had a really nice meal. But then right after the meal, we both came down with kind of an illness, and we were forced to spend an extra day in Lucca. And our hotel room, where we spent the day just kind of staying in our room because we were both feeling not so great, was an accordionist who was playing Italian music right under our window. So if I had a picture of this, I could show you that the window right above the accordionist is the window we had from the hotel, which I'll be showing you in just a moment. So this is the entertainment we had during the day. Very, very nice. And this is the street where the hotel was located. So that's the view we had when we came out of the hotel in 2009, looking at the church of San Michele. This is the hotel, the Hotel Puccini Piccolo, and it got its name from the nearby house. You know, Puccini, the famous opera writer of opera, was born in Lucca. So there is a house right around here, which is the house that he was born in. So the hotel takes its name from that house, which is the Hotel Puccini Piccolo. And that's the entrance to the hotel. And that's what the lobby of the hotel looks like, looking out onto the street. You can see the very, very beautiful chandeliers right there. And that is not the owner of the hotel. I went up to the front and I asked the fellow, I said, were you the owner of the hotel who was here in 2009 when my wife and I were here and, became ill? He said he was not. But, that particular person was off that day. But I told him to please tell the owner of the hotel that if he remembers, my wife and I were there that day, and he was very, very kind to us. He was bringing up tea for us and crackers and some toast, and he was being really, really nice to us. So I wanted the owner of the hotel to know that we really appreciated it, and if we ever come back to stay in Lucca, which is a definite possibility because it's such a wonderful town, we would be there. So that's the photo we took with one of the owners. And we decided that we were going to go back into the piazza that I had shown you earlier and have an ice cream. So this is the gelato that we came upon in the Piazza San Michele. And you could see that. Now, let me tell you that ice cream was just unbelievably good. You can see all the various flavors right there in the front. The only two flavors I could make out is the tiramisu ice cream, which was right over here, and the one in front of it, which is looks like pistachio, and the tiramisu, of course, is self-explanatory. But I had either one or a couple of those flavors, and we spent the half hour or so in the piazza, and then we continued on, and we passed some more very, very charming cafes. That's a really nice one. And again, some more bicycles, or just everywhere really. And walking down the side streets of Lucca, and very modern stores. It's as I said, it's a combination of modern and medieval, and this is an example of one of the modern stores. Another one. And then we decided to, kind of work our way back towards the car. So we began to walk. I'm not sure if this was the same street or whether it was a parallel street, but, again, we began to make our way back. There's a restaurant over there on the right, and I'm sure that those tables over there on the left are related to the restaurant. More bicycles. Seems like everybody had a bicycle. And some very interesting modern designs on the walls, as you could see. Okay, now here's another church, and I actually have the name of this. I did some research. I wasn't sure what church this was, but I came to the conclusion that it's the Church of San Romano, which is now a Dominican convent from the 12th century. And the distinguishing characteristic of this church, as you could see from looking at it, is that the facade was unfinished and was never completed. That's what you're looking at now. And, there's a certain fascination in looking at a church with an unfinished facade, wondering why they just didn't finish it. But that's a very, very common characteristic of Tuscan churches, that they left the facade for later. And then, work was done on the facade at a later time. The most famous that I could think of, which is one of my favorite churches in Florence, is the Church of San Lorenzo, which has a magnificent front, but the facade was left unfinished. It was actually a church that was created by the famous Brunelleschi, but the facade, they could have run out of money and said, we'll do the facade at another time, but they never got around to it. Another building in which there was a children's exhibition of cartoon characters, and that is the advertisement for it. And this is from the entrance. And for some reason, I decided not to go in. So Laura said she would like to go in, took the camera, and took some very, very interesting photographs of the interior. See, that's a cartoon character, as is this. Spider-Man, I believe. And then she went in and photographed some really colorful things, as you could see, from inside the exhibition. And when I saw the pictures, I realized that I may have made a mistake by not going in. One more. You could see that the exhibition is very, very well done. And more advertisements for concerts. This time, a classical concert with Beethoven over there and all the other things. And this is a palazzo. We took this photo through the gate, so you can see it's a very, very pretty garden right there. And now we're kind of on our way outside of the town of Lucca. And one of the things you pass, of course, is the wall that we went through the gate in order to enter the town. And you can see over there on the right side is the walkway. And this is what, Lucca is known for its walkway. They have benches along the side, and people, it's pedestrian only. So, people walk along there on a nice afternoon, and they also bicycle along there. And we walked for, it's quite a climb to get to, that. But they have, kind of like a stepway to get to that point. So we went up there and we walked around a bit, looking at some of the scenery. And that's one of the views you get when you look back at the entranceway, which is not a beautiful view, but a very evocative view of the entrance to a typical, town, or actually bigger than a town, I would say, kind of a larger town, smaller city, with the buses and the cars parked and so on. But there were, beautiful views as I was taking in right here, as I was looking out at the piazza with the really beautiful view of the walls over there on the right side and straight ahead. Another very kind of evocative view of a Tuscan city. And then outside the walls, and of course we were not going to be taking one of those buses to get. You could take a bus from Lucca back to Florence or anywhere else in that part of Tuscany. Another way of getting to Lucca is to get to Lucca by train. That's the way I originally got there back in 2001. But you can see you could take a train. It's about an hour, perhaps a little less, west of Florence, or you could take a bus. These are some of the things we did not get to see. So on my first trip there in 2001, I got a chance to go up to the top of this tower. This is a very, very famous tower in Lucca. Let me make that larger, get a nicer view of that. This is called the Guingi Tower, and it was owned by one of the famous wealthy families of Lucca during the time that wealthy families were building very tall towers, as they did in many Tuscan towns, most notably the town of San Gimignano, which has many, many of the original towers left. So I went up there and I got a very nice view. As you could see, it's like, they planted trees up on the tower, and you get a very nice view of the town itself. The other place that we did not go, which I had been to in my first trip to Lucca, is the Piazza Amphitheatro, which is on the exact spot, excuse me, of the Roman amphitheater that was there 2,000 years ago. And as you could see from this aerial view of it, it's in the shape, in the exact shape of the Roman amphitheater, as many piazzas are now in Italy, following the exact pattern of the Roman amphitheater. And that brings us to the end of tonight's show, and then a little word about the next show, which I'll talk about in greater detail in 2 weeks. But next on Alan's Italy is the town of Castelnuovo di Garfagnana, which is the town. There are a lot of towns by the name of Castelnuovo, but this is in the area known as the Garfagnana, which is a mountain range in the very, I would say, northwestern portion of Tuscany, in an area known more familiarly as the Alpi Appuane. And this is a very interesting story because we had originally gone to this town. We originally tried to get to this town in 2009, and I'll talk about that more next time. But it was just impossible to get to, because as higher we got into the mountains, the more ice and snow we were encountering, and we just weren't making any progress. So I vowed that I would love to go back to Castelnuovo di Garfagnana sometime in the future, and this is the show that is going to cover that experience of going back to this town and to a lot of the towns in that region. So that brings us to the end of tonight's show, and I hope you enjoyed that little visit to one of my favorite Tuscan hill towns of Lucca, and I hope you enjoyed that, and buonanotte e buona fortuna.